You probably know the Sahara Desert as one of the harshest, driest places on the planet, a place where life barely clings on. But Egypt is planning something that sounds almost unbelievable. By 2030, they want to turn huge sections of this desert into farmland. At first, the idea seems absurd. How does pushing billions of gallons of treated water into a scorching desert help feed a population of 107 million? Yet the results already unfolding are shocking and surprisingly smart. The heart of the action sits just west of the Nile Delta. Here, Egypt's new Delta project channels water through an engineered river slicing into the edges of the Sahara. This river, the massive Al Masama Al Hammam Canal, is the largest artificial river on Earth. It stretches roughly 114 kilometers, beginning at a water treatment plant of the same name and ending near the town of Daba, around 300 kilometers northwest of Cairo. Most of the water moving through it isn't fresh Nile water but recycled agricultural wastewater collected from farmlands along the way. So what happens when this treated water reaches the end of the line? It gets pumped straight into Egypt's western desert, where it is being used to reclaim land for farming. And incredibly, it's working. Satellite images from NASA's Earth Observatory show green patches emerging across terrain that was pure sand just a few years ago. In a comparison of 16,000 square kilometers of land near the Nile Valley, one image from November 28, 2018, and another from November 20, 2024, you can clearly see new farmland spreading along the canal corridor. These green zones likely represent part of the 500,000 Feddans Egypt reclaimed by the end of 2023. But Egypt's ambitions don't stop there. The country wants to transform 4.5 million Feddans by 2027, an area roughly the size of the entire state of New Jersey. Massive goals like that take massive funding, and estimates for the project vary. Some reports claim it costs around $9.7 billion. Middle East Monitor places it closer to $5.2 billion. Either way, it's a staggering investment, and that has fueled major backlash. Even using the lower estimate, critics argue that billions could be better spent on healthcare, education, or more realistic agriculture programs. They also point out that desert reclamation eats up precious groundwater that Egypt already doesn't have enough of. Keep that point in mind. It returns later. But the biggest criticism is that the project's targets may just be too ambitious. After building canals, pumping stations, treatment facilities, and infrastructure, many observers claim the return on investment is far too slow. They argue that the government will need many more years than promised to reach its targets. If they're right, Egypt may face food shortages while also sinking billions into a delayed plan. And historically, Egypt has tried projects like this and fallen short. That brings us to the New Valley Project from 1997. The New Delta and the New Valley projects are often treated as separate ideas, but both are giant national attempts to expand Egypt's habitable and arable land. Egypt has a brutal geographical limitation. Only 3 to 4% of the country is usable for agriculture, all along the narrow Nile River corridor. These megaprojects aim to break that limitation. The New Delta project benefits from proximity to the densely populated north, making it easier to attract workers, industries, and farmers. It uses modern water recycling technologies and draws less directly from the Nile. The New Valley Project, also known as the Tashka Project, sits far to the south near Lake Nasser. Launched in the late 1990s, it aimed to reclaim 1.5 million Feddans using Nile water pumped through the massive Sheikh Zayed Canal. Its mission wasn't just agricultural. It hoped to draw millions of Egyptians away from the congested Nile Valley into new desert towns. Both projects share a core mission: build canals, extend farmlands, develop infrastructure, and contribute to Egypt's Vision 2030 goals for food security and economic diversification. But each faces different hurdles. The New Delta confronts sustainability obstacles like water scarcity and soil salinity. The New Valley struggles with more practical challenges: long distances, high pumping costs, and building communities almost from scratch. Still, both carry the same objective: use diverted water to transform desert into farmland in an era of climate change and soaring food demand. Now let's address the elephant in the room: Why is Egypt pushing so hard to create internal water sources instead of relying on the Nile like it has for thousands of years? The answer is straightforward. Egypt does not own the Nile. The river flows through 11 countries. The White Nile emerges from Lake Victoria in East Africa. The Blue Nile flows from Lake Tana in Ethiopia. These rivers merge in Sudan and eventually reach Egypt, making Egypt the final receiver of a river shaped by decisions made upstream. This brings us to Ethiopia's Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, also known as GERD. Positioned on the Blue Nile, it has created immense tension. Egypt has accused Ethiopia of violating international law by filling the dam without agreement. And there is real concern. Reducing Nile flow even slightly could devastate Egyptian agriculture. One study argues that a mere 2% drop in water supply could wipe out 200,000 acres of farmland. But Ethiopia sees the dam as essential. Over 60% of its population needs reliable electricity, and the dam is perfectly positioned in the highlands where 85% of Nile water originates. From Ethiopia's perspective, GERD is no different than Egypt's own Aswan High Dam, a national project built for national needs. So despite international arguments, Ethiopia built it anyway. Negotiations continue, but GERD is fully operational. For Egypt, that means one thing: it must urgently secure new water sources and reduce dependence on imports, because Egypt's food situation is fragile. The country has 107 million people, the third largest population in Africa. Only 3 to 4% of the land is farmable. As a result, Egypt imports huge amounts of food, especially wheat. Egyptians eat bread the way Italians eat pasta. In 2023 alone, Egypt spent over $4 billion importing wheat. And its biggest suppliers? Russia and Ukraine, both at war, making wheat prices volatile and unpredictable. Add climate change, limited land, and reduced Nile flow into the mix, and the pressure becomes unmistakable. Egypt must produce more food, quickly, cheaply, and sustainably. That's why transforming the desert is no vanity project. It's survival. And this is where hydroponics enters the story. Hydroponics lets crops grow in nutrient-rich water instead of soil, and the benefits for a dry country like Egypt are massive. First, hydroponics slashes water usage by up to 90% compared to traditional farming. There's almost no evaporation because the system is enclosed. Second, hydroponics uses far less land, especially when grown vertically. A single vertical farm can outperform several hectares of open field crops. Third, hydroponics is controllable and reliable. Sensors monitor pH, oxygen, temperature, and nutrient levels, making yields predictable, which is crucial for a country with unstable water supply. Hydroponics shines with crops like leafy greens, herbs, and tomatoes. Wheat, however, is not suited for hydroponic growth at scale, so hydroponics cannot replace cereal production. But it does complement traditional farming, freeing up land and water for wheat fields while producing vegetables cheaply and close to cities. Hydroponic farms are already appearing around Cairo and other urban centers. Small growers run greenhouse rows of lettuce, while larger investors test vertical farms inside repurposed factories. The reclaimed lands of the New Delta could host hybrid zones, open fields for grains and controlled environment farms for vegetables, maximizing both scale and efficiency. For investors, hydroponics offers quick turnover and predictable yields. Costs vary. Small setups need tens of thousands of dollars. Mid-size farms cost hundreds of thousands. Large vertical farms run into millions. Revenue comes from fast growth cycles and high-density production. Investors can also profit through equipment, software, nutrient mixes, logistics, cold storage, and turnkey farm solutions. Hydroponics pairs naturally with renewable energy, especially solar, which is abundant in Egypt. This reduces operating costs and makes farms viable in remote desert communities where power supply is weak. Locating hydroponic farms near desalination plants creates even more synergy. But challenges exist, mainly electricity costs, nutrient supply chains, and the risk of disease spreading quickly through closed-loop systems. Hydroponics isn't a silver bullet, but it is a powerful tool in Egypt's fight for food security. Now let's zoom out to the broader economic impact. Reclaiming desert land doesn't just grow food, it grows entire communities. Farms create direct agricultural jobs. New processing plants create jobs in cutting, packaging, drying, and canning. Logistics networks require truck drivers, warehouse workers, and cold chain operators. New settlements need teachers, doctors, retailers, and public services. Every farm becomes the seed of a small economy. For investors, this ripple effect is attractive. Projects that create jobs often gain easier access to financing, land, and public-private partnership opportunities. Governments want to support developments that stimulate regional economies and reduce food shortages. Development banks often contribute concessional financing to de-risk these investments. And Egypt's experiment has global implications. Desertification is threatening dozens of countries. Water scarcity is intensifying everywhere. If Egypt manages to reclaim desert using recycled water, desalination, and modern agriculture, it creates a blueprint the world can copy. It could reduce pressure on shared rivers, stabilize food supplies, and accelerate sustainable water reuse technologies. Egypt's work could push new investments into blended finance, irrigation tech, smart sensors, and advanced farming methods. Technology tested in Egypt may be exported to other dry nations. Researchers, NGOs, and universities will collaborate on irrigation trials, soil management, and climate-resilient crops. The New Delta project becomes not just a national effort, but a global lab. In summary, Egypt's New Delta project is more than a bold engineering challenge. It is a demonstration of what water-smart agriculture might look like in the future. If it succeeds, countries facing climate stress and population growth will follow its example. If it struggles, it will still offer valuable lessons to the world. So what do you think of Egypt's plan to secure its food future and transform its deserts? Let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.